Hello, gang. Hello, hello, hello. My friends at Parks Casino recognize that so many of their employees and customers live in Northeast Philadelphia, the great Northeast, and they offer their thoughts and prayers to the victims, their families, the entire Philadelphia community affected by that tragedy of that plane that, my God, just dropped from the sky. I said when we were last together on Saturday that it would be a miracle if only those aboard perished, and indeed someone on the ground perished as well. But um, it could have been worse. I mean, if you said to me that that plane would take off from that airport from which I have flown and it would crash within a minute, um, I would say unless it crashed in the Delaware, it's going to be catastrophic in terms of people on the ground because it's so densely populated. I know that doesn't make it any better. Doesn't make it any better, but it's so damn sad. So, so sad. Thank you, Parks Casino. Thank you, Parks Casino, for allowing me to say that. They've still got action. They've still got excitement. They've still got entertainment, concerts and comedy, MMA, all in that state-of-the-art Excite Center where I have been on many occasions, thousands of slots and live table games and a state-of-the-art sports book. Everybody's excited, of course, about the big game next Sunday. Pennsylvania's #1 casino just announced comedian Trevor Wallace. And also you've got Jerry Cantrell from Alice in Chains in just 5 days. Scotty McCreery from American Idol, magician Michael Carbonaro, comedian Ron White, country superstar Lee Brice, comedian Larry the Cable Guy. Don't forget, dinner and drinks before the show. Stick around, play some cards. ParksCasino.com. Buy tickets for all the shows. This is how you win. You've got to be 21. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. So, first of all, thank you for being here. Please make sure that you're liking and subscribing and setting yourself up for notifications. When we were last together on radio air, the poll question at Smerconish.com asked, was DEI a factor in the DC crash? 36,010 voted. A lot of votes for a Friday. 93.14% said no. I knew, and of course that's the right call, I knew that the outcome would be heavily weighted toward people saying, no, DEI was not a factor, notwithstanding what President Trump said last Thursday. I wanted to see how high the yes votes would get. Only 6.8%. And I, of course, have told here and both on radio and television the story of Joe Ellis. Joe, who was wrongly blamed. I mean, some crazy internet story where Joe, having been my guest, talking about her experience as a helicopter pilot in service to her country, and she was my guest after writing for Smerconish.com, having nothing to do with DC because that hadn't happened, but rather to comment on President Trump's attempt at precluding transgendered individuals from serving. So Joe was my guest, and then DC happens. And then some troll thinks they're putting 2 and 2 together, and all of a sudden her name gets thrown into the mix, and she was the #2 trending story on X last Friday with this salacious account of having played a role when she played none. So she was my guest on Saturday on CNN, and with the sort of strength of her appearance, now I asked as the poll question, do you believe President Trump's blaming of DEI for the Washington crash was a deliberate attempt to shift focus from congressional confirmation hearings? I do. I mean, that's my theory, and I'm sticking to it. I think that Trump was trying to divert attention from Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, and also from Kash Patel. We had 57,581 people cast ballots on Saturday, and 68.87%, better than 2/3, agreed with me that there's a method to Trump's madness. Not defending it, quite the contrary, but I think he knew what he was doing. And that story then continued to dominate headlines, Trump asserting that it was DEI for the next couple of days. Had a little bit of fun with yesterday's poll question because of the Super Bowl coming up this Sunday and the success of the Eagles with the tush push, AKA the brotherly shove. Some won it banned. They want the old quarterback sneak banned because Philadelphia is so good at it. Should the NFL ban the tush push, aka the brotherly shove? 66.21%, two-thirds said no, don't do it. The Eagles are better at it than anybody else. If you think it's easy, just remember how Buffalo struggled in executing the tush push against Kansas City. So we'll see if that becomes an issue in the offseason. The Eagles' success rate is between 82 and 83%. Other teams in the NFL, 76%. Okay, today's poll question, today's Monday poll question at Smerconish.com, this requires a little explanation. You might be thinking, that's a little wacky. Why is he asking that? Are you always, emphasis on always, honest when telling people how you voted in the 2024 election? And I gave you three choices. I thought I had to in this instance. There's a yes vote. Yes, I'm always honest. There's a no vote. No, I'm not always honest. Or I say nothing. Mark Penn and Andrew Stein wrote an essay for the Wall Street Journal that caught my eye. We linked to it in the newsletter. They begin this way. Campaign ads last year urged women to vote for Kamala Harris, but conceal their choice from their husbands. You remember this? What happens in the booth stays in the booth. George Clooney narrated in one ad. Well, it turns out the stereotype was wrong, meaning the stereotype of women fibbing. A Harris Axios poll of nearly 2,000 voters released in late October found that men were nearly twice as likely as women to say they lied about their vote to somebody close to them, and 20% of men had lied about their vote more than once. A reasonable surmise is that men are more afraid of being judged by women for their votes than the other way around. I thought, isn't that interesting? I'm telling you how I have voted. I have not yet voted at Smerconish.com, but I will soon. And I'm going in the category of I say nothing. I say nothing. The reason that I say nothing, and I know this is different probably from most of you, unless you host a radio program and a TV show, but from 1980, the spring of 80, when I turned 18 and immediately registered to vote, through up to 2008, and I've discussed this before, I was a reliable Republican presidential vote, because I didn't just pull the big lever, as we used to say, and vote only for Republican candidates, but I voted for all Republican candidates from 80 up until 2008. And then in 2008, I decided I was going to vote for the Democratic presidential candidate, Barack Obama, for the first time in my life. Now the question was that I really wrestled with, do I say something about it? And in the 2008 cycle, because it had been such a journey and I had spoken so openly on radio about the difficulty I was having and determined for whom to cast a ballot, difficulty because I had the privilege of interacting with both John McCain and Barack Obama. Both were guests of mine. McCain, I hosted for live events in Philadelphia. We got into this routine where he would come to town for the Army-Navy game, and we would lay on a radio event. And I enjoyed being in his company and had and continue to have today immense respect for John McCain. But I decided I was voting for Obama. The short version is that the memory of September 11 was still burning bright. The most significant event in my life beyond very close personal family matters. And that continues to be how I feel about September 11. So I made that decision, and I decided I need to tell the audience what I'm doing. Not because I wanted to encourage them to do likewise, but I just thought I wanted to offer a full explanation. And I was so deliberate in how I handled that where I was then a columnist, I guess at that time, just for the Daily News. I don't think I had yet started writing for the Philadelphia Inquirer as well, but I ultimately then took on a Sunday column for the Philadelphia Inquirer. But I was afforded, 650 to 800 words in a typical week. And I felt that there was no way that I could explain myself in that limited word count And radio wasn't enough. I wanted there to be a written record of why I was voting that way. So I ended up writing like a 2,000 word essay for salon.com. And that became, and you can Google it today. You can Google it today. It didn't matter. Like it did not matter that I painstakingly said to people, I'm giving you a window into my thinking. I'm not telling you what to do. The only thing I'm telling you to do is go vote. Go vote for whomever. As I said to our kids, back when everybody was under our roof, I would rather you go cancel my vote if you think you know how I'm voting than you don't vote at all. And I've always handled that the same way with the radio audience. Go vote for whomever. When we all vote, we water down the fringes. Anyway, it didn't matter to many in the audience. They were just like livid and felt betrayed. How could you vote for Obama? Some were worse, you can imagine. But yeah, that's what I did, and I explained myself. And then I had another experience where it was in 2016. 2016, in the cycle where it was Secretary Clinton and Donald Trump and Johnson and Weld. I made it pretty clear to the audience that I was going to vote third party. And in this instance, further blowback. And of course, as you well know, I single-handedly elected Donald Trump. Oh, that's the way some people remembered it. They blamed me because I said I was going to vote for Johnson Weld, and therefore you took away votes from Hillary and Trump won Pennsylvania. It's all your fault. I'm like, you can't win. You just cannot win. And I think part of the problem for me is that people are so accustomed to radio and television hosts being so predictable and so rote from the right or from the left that there's no tolerance or understanding of nuance. There just isn't. It's like, oh, yeah, I knew he was this. I knew he was that. He's hiding it from. I'm hiding nothing. And if I don't know, I'll tell you I don't know. So I'm in the category of I'm not saying anything. I don't want to make it about me. I know it infuriates some, but that's where I choose to be. I said nothing about my vote in the most recent election. I tried to be fair on air, to criticize all the candidates when they deserve it. You may remember. I mean, I made very clear well in advance of the general election that I thought that one was morally questionable and the other was too old. I don't know. That's how I said something along those lines. But my role is to get people to be engaged and to go and vote. So, mine is a little more complicated, I guess, maybe than yours might be. What I'm getting at in the poll question, there were a lot of comments appended to the Wall Street Journal editorial that my guest and Andrew Stein wrote. The chief comment, Laura, my reticence to comment to anyone is related to self-preservation. I'm surrounded by people so filled with hate that my car would be keyed and my parlor window likely smashed if I dared to let them in on the fact that I am a conservative. That's sad. That is really, really sad. And as I've said many times, I worry primarily about our kids and thinking that it's always been like this. And it hasn't always been like this, but it's gotten a hell of a lot worse, hasn't it? Anyway, go vote at Smerconish.com on today's poll question. Are you always honest when telling people how you voted in the 2024 presidential election? Yes, I am. No, I'm not. Or I just don't say anything. I just don't say anything. Go vote, go vote, go vote. Go vote on my poll question today and go vote in each and every election. Okay? All right. See you on radio. Thank you.